there is no domestic supply of roll foiling sheets. Everything, because it's so thin now, no company in the States makes it. You can bet rolls and sheets will be going up more than pans will because we still have our domestic supply on pans. But aluminum on the domestic side has been flat. We haven't raised our prices basically in over a year and a half. So that is coming.
Welcome to Let's Set Your Table, the food service and hospitality podcast that brings you the experts, trending news, and product reviews from across the industry. So grab a chair with our hosts and join us as we set your table.
Well, welcome all to yet another episode of Let's Set Your Table. I'm your host, John D., and today I'm joined with my co-host, Nick D. What's up, Nick?
Good to be here. I'm excited for another episode.
Yeah, man, we got a pretty good one today. There is a lot of buzz going on out there in the industry regarding aluminum prices and tariffs and how it's going to affect the owner-operator. And, man, I'm going to tell you what, we've had a lot of questions, and the inquiry minds want to know. So we've got a great guest with us. We're bringing Todd Dery in, who's our national sales manager with Durable Packaging, which is a U.S. manufacturer out of Wheeling, Illinois, for foil packaging. So this ought to be a pretty good one to bring to the table. And but Nick, hey, before we get into any of this, let's make sure that we give a shout out to our sponsor.
This episode of Let's Set Your Table is brought to you by the Hody Group Chicago Showroom. The Hody Group offers professional broker services in the food service and hospitality industry with over 40 years' experience. The Hody Group's product showroom boasts over 4,000 square feet of some of the best product lines in the industry. So if you're interested in scheduling a free in-person or virtual appointment with a product specialist, please visit HodyGroupShowroom.com. That's HODE groupshowroom.com.
Well, without any more further ado, we have with us, joining us here at the table today, Mr. Todd Dery. Thank you for coming to the table, and welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me. I want to be Todd D since you're John D and Nick D. Come on.
Well, you Todd D is fine. So anyway.
That's rule number one in sales, what they say. We can be whoever we want to be when you're on the phone, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you and I actually, when we exchange communication, it's JD or TD. So it's,
That's right.
it's fine. Yeah, because who wants to type all that, right? So, well, Todd, thanks for joining us. As I mentioned as we were setting up the show, there's a lot of buzz out there going on, man. And you guys, I'm sure, are walking in some pretty hefty shoes right now with a lot of stuff coming down and a lot of changes. So, again, given the fact that back, I think, when we were at one of our national sales meetings with one of our distributor groups, and Nick and I and you were presenting to the different rotations in the group, you addressed the group and shared with us at that time, which was in June, that in, I think it was October, there was going to be some big legislation that was coming down, a regulation based on what we call anti-dumping. Is that correct, Todd?
Yes. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't start with an overall timeline of events here, because it's been so volatile.
Yes.
Basically over the last year and a half to 2 years. So leading up to this, what you were just discussing, this anti-dumping legislation that we were part of, essentially there was a time almost 2 years ago now at this point where there were no, foreign imported products in the States at the time. There was a major shortage of bauxite, and we were having a very hard time getting our material from our domestic suppliers. I work for Durable Packaging, as you mentioned. We buy domestic parent rolls, which, for those who aren't familiar, you don't just buy finished goods of containers. We are buying big parent rolls of aluminum at different gauges and different tensions and strengths, and then we bring them into our facility where we then convert them and mold them into different pans, containers, and whatnot. So
and bauxite was one of those substances, right, that you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to try and speak high level here and not get into too much
in the weeds,
nitty-gritty, as they say. Yes. Yeah. So on the container and pan side, we were having such a hard time getting this material, and we would order, we order by the pound. So I'm just going to use these figures. So let's say we ordered 100,000 pounds of material, and it was supposed to come in on October 1st. Well, October 1st came and went. Nothing arrived. October 15th, nothing. November 1st, nothing. We're constantly reaching out. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. November 15th shows up 45 days late, and we'll get 12,000 of our 100,000 pounds. And this went on for a solid 6 to 8 months where we were literally hand to mouth getting this material, putting it right into our presses, stamping it, putting it into boxes, and getting it out. Like we literally were sitting on nothing. So the customers of ours who stuck with us and were our most loyal ones had most favorite nation status, and they were getting what we had. All of the people we weren't buying from and our competitors weren't buying from, and our customers were doing the same thing when they couldn't get it. Everyone's out there going to the other companies going, hey, you wanted our business for a long time. Here's your opportunity to bid on it. Well, that was because there was no material to be had. So finally, we reach a point where we have enough material to take care of everybody. The problem is the reason that was, number one, we were getting different sources of material. Number two, all of a sudden, there was a massive, massive flood of these imported products, finished goods imported products. And when I say finished goods, I mean full boxes of 7 or 9 inch rounds, full or half deep steam table pans, the pans that you would see, sold anywhere. All of a sudden, these are flush in the market. It's labels and lines we've never heard of, and they are between 35 and 50% cheaper than what we are able to sell at. And, we buy material at a certain price point, and we have to sell it at a certain price point. Obviously, we're all in this business to make money. Sure. I mean, those are the facts. But we get to this point where now we have all this material, but we can't sell it because these imported products have completely flooded the market, bottomed out the price levels. Now all of our customers are coming up to us with, look at this invoice I got for this company I've never heard of. Why are they so cheap, and why are they able to do it? And I can always point to, well, it's import, it's cheap. I guarantee you it's lighter gauge or lesser material. And I could rip that stuff with my hand because we've seen these products come and go. I've been in this industry 25 years. I've seen this come and go. This time around, these products were pretty good in quality.
Wow.
So now they're half the price, and their quality is right up there with ours.
Okay.
So it became a real tough thing, not just for myself, but for the other big three. There's 4 domestic competitors, 3 durable, handy foil, active, and Western Plastics. Those 4 who are all buying domestic from essentially the same places, we all were in the same boat. We were all shaking our heads. None of us could make any money in aluminum or sell our product, and the people stayed loyal to us was great. But, obviously we're all, like I said before, we're all in this to make money, and we had no choice but to just kind of, do what we could do. That's neither here nor there. So all of this stuff was going on for a solid 8 to 12 months of these imports. I mean, to your point, when I was at that conference, this is back in June
of last year.
This had been of
24.
Yes. This was already a few months in, and we were already we had already come up with our plan on how to combat this. So ourselves and the other domestic suppliers had no choice at that point. We had to start buying finished goods from overseas. And as our company did, we created a separate import line called Powerfoil. Now, we only did this because we had to.
Mm-hmm.
During this, there was always going to be a short period of time. And what our plan was always going to be was, okay, we'll have this until things turn back around, and then we'll be in much better shape. So we only bought X amount. During this time where we decided we were going to do this, the anti-dumping legislation that you discussed was set in motion. And what happened was all of the big 4 companies, along with 2 or 3 other of the smaller ones, got together with lawyers, and we collected emails and quotes and everything that said, look, I can't buy from you anymore. Look at this pricing I'm getting. And we literally collected all this stuff, lobbied in DC in front of the Federal Trade Commission saying, listen, we have to do something about this. we're talking about American-made business and keeping it, keeping these plants going. If you don't do something to combat this, these great American businesses, Durable's been around since 1946. We are on fourth generation family employment. Okay, we have fourth generation employees now, which is unbelievable. But if we don't do anything about this, you're going to pull us right out of business. And this is not something that we obviously want. And you, as the leaders of this country, do not want this. So what are you going to do to help us? Mm-hmm. So while this was all going on, we had the Power Foil line as a temporary action. Pactiv was doing the same thing in their boxes, putting made in China on the top. Pactiv, Handy Foil Pactiv, doing the same thing. Western Plastics doing the same thing. We just kind of all had to do it. So during that time, the legislation finally went through. There were several rounds that were announced. August, roll foil, so anything that you would get, big roll of foil, and those interfolded sheets of foil, whether that be 12 by 10 3/4 or 9 by 10 3/4, those immediately got tariffed. And this is going back to August at 39%. So there was a 39% jump before it came in.
On the imports.
Yes, on the imports.
Yeah. Huge.
So that was the first phase. The second phase, which came in October, which we talked about earlier, that was 78.5% on all containers. Now I'm talking finished goods and parent rolls here. So the goal of this was to put those plants out of business because they're running it at all this. Now all of a sudden they're paying an inordinate tariff. Well, these Chinese government subsidies last until they don't. Then they shut the plants down and they move on to whatever else. Right. Sorry, wow. I'm going on, but this is all part of the story.
Yep.
So now you have that. So we're like, okay, great. What we had been told was by the first of the year, Q1, early Q1, you'll see these things peter off and go away. Well, the Chinese government started to move these plants and machineries to countries that weren't subjected to these tariffs. So Vietnam and Thailand and Indonesia, those were the three big ones. All of these plants moved there and they just kept going and going and going. And these products took a downturn for 6 weeks and then all of a sudden they reappeared. Same product coming over from here. So now we have the new administration take place. We immediately go back and say, you have to shut this down. What are we going to do about this? Which brings us to present day, which recently in the last week, I'm sure you've seen, there was a 10% additional tariff on rolls and sheets, but that was already in place. An additional 25% was added to that, which is supposed to go into effect on March 12th. So I'm going to leave you there, and then we can pick up with other questions you have for me. I know I gave a lot of information there, but I feel like that whole story had to be told so you can get us understand where we are present day and where the market is going, which, as you know, is going up.
Right. And this is the hard conversation to have with these operators who are struggling to continue to grow revenue. They work real hard to get their customers to come back and customers to come into their dining rooms, into their restaurants, into their hotels or hospitality groups. Everybody's working hard. And now we're continuing. And this is a conversation that Nick and I and Todd, you have with our customers out there that, you hate to say it, but you got to pass this off back to the end user, the consumer, I should say, not
Absolutely.
The end user. Boy, it's hard, because when we go out to dine, and look, folks, that foil piece of packaging, steam pans and rounds and foil, sheet foil sheets. Yep. And pop-up sheets and interfolded sheets, they're a necessity in the back of house in the kitchen. Absolute necessity. You could probably even live without pop-up sheets, but you're not going to live without a steam pan. These are important items that we have to have, and the operator needs them. So it's just, I don't expect that, I think that end user should pass that cost on to the customer. I ate recently at a fish house, my wife and I, no drinks, club soda and some lemon, a couple of fish fillets, a nice place. And let me tell you what, that bill was $108. There was no alcohol consumed. And we're talking a salad, a couple of fish fillets, grilled fish, and I think I had some shrimp, some peel and eat shrimp to go with it down here in Florida. $108. So, you sit here and say, where does this all end? And these operators, we love to dine out, but these operators have to pass that cost on because I don't know how they're going to survive.
Well, I think they might be thinking about going backwards in quality of substrate and maybe going cheaper because they think that that's the answer to surviving. But this may be a question, Todd, or just the group on other substrates out there, looking at foam, paper, molded fibers, all across the board. I don't think that there is a substrate that is necessarily protected from import tariffs right now to protect the home front of the United States, right? Everybody's being affected by that.
Absolutely. Now, and I'll say this, Nick. Aluminum has always been the greenest material and next to foam, the cheapest material you can get in disposables.
That's right.
Now, there's a lot of foam bans out there in parts of the country, which makes aluminum the cheapest in those areas, Pacific Northwest, Southern California, stuff like that. So we are indeed, as an aluminum company, your best and cheapest option. I think molded fiber is a great product. I do like it a lot. I think it looks sharp. And if you really do want to tell like a quote unquote green story, it's wonderful to have. That said, it's 5 times the cost of aluminum, and you need to compost that. And we can be as honest as we want here. How many people do we know that have a separate composting bin and it actually gets taken to a composting facility? Recycling is a different story. Everyone's got recycling, and it's easier to recycle. Composting is much harder. So going back to all that, aluminum is still your cheapest and greenest material because it's infinitely recyclable. We do have higher end aluminum pans that you can sell. But again, all of the pricing on everything, and to your point, John, everything's going up. Inflation is here, okay? It's like we can talk all about it, but the fact is this is happening, and there's nothing we can do
that's right.
to stop it. That's a part of a bigger conversation we don't need to get into, but these are the facts, and this is what we're living in. So, just from a increased standpoint, aluminum on the domestic side has been flat. We haven't raised our prices basically in over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And the first increase is now out there. I've seen 6%. Our letter is supposed to come out. I was told, today when we're recording this is Wednesday. I was told by midweek, late at the end of the week at the latest, that our increased letter will be out there. The reason for that is, number one, the tariffs, we do. So one thing I should specify here when I was talking about us being a domestic, using domestic supply, rolls and sheets, there is no domestic supply of roll foil and sheets. Everything, because it's so thin now, no company in the States makes it. It just hasn't existed for, I'd say 10 years now, maybe a little bit longer. So all of the parent rolls come from overseas. You can bet rolls and sheets will be going up more than pans will because we still have our domestic supply on pans. But we use the Midwest index pricing on aluminum, and it's up to $1.60 a pound, which is it's close to a high of the last, well, actually it is. It's a high of the last 2 years. So you'll see that starting to happen in our industry. Usually when we announce it's okay, April, like today is the 19th, it'll be April 1st, it'll be this, 6%, 8%, whatever it might be. So that is coming. So those have to be covered in costs. And again, because of all of the imports that have come in that have bottomed out our market, and we have basically had to eat so much margin, it kind of is what it is. We want to stay open for as long as we, for the next generation, for the 5th generation. So, it's peaks and valleys, and this is a valley, unfortunately.
Sounds like rolls and sheets is across the board. It's a price increase, whether it's all imports. So that's we're not getting away from that. I think the one question that came to mind was that if I'm a customer and I have a multi-unit restaurant and I'm using a certain substrate right now, I guess they need to ask the question of themselves is that, would you rather temporarily step backwards if you're using a plastic or another high-end substrate and step into a season of something that's still infinitely recyclable, still presents really well with the food plated in it? Or do you want to pass more cost over to your customer? Because I think that's all, again, at Hody Group, we talk about solutions and we consult. So giving customers options. So I think that's a big question they need to ask right now. And I think we need to be having the conversation more with them.
I agree. And I know, I'm sorry to cut you off, John.
No, it's fine.
I know one thing in talking to Todd Hody was very big on this, going back to when we were first having issues, is, okay, you don't want to use a clear hinge container for a burger or a sandwich or something. Why not wrap it in a piece of wax paper, or a foil sheet or something that's going to be a little bit cheaper? That option is always there. There are definitely solutions that will be cheaper. On the other side of it, if you're a restaurant owner and you don't think that is good for you, you have no choice but to, raise things 5 cents here, 10 cents here, 25 cents here, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, and we are always pushing, because since Nick and I went to California 5 years ago and had to work out in that market a couple times with one of our distributor partners, we got some takeout packaging that was brought into, when we got to market. And it was delivered. And what was it, Todd? This is my favorite new thing to present because of the price point. It was a 7 or 9 inch round with a dome lid. And let me tell you, there was a shrimp salad in there and a grilled chicken salad. And let me tell you, I don't know if we could add this to the show notes. We need to. It is the sexiest piece of packaging I've seen, all put into a craft bag with a handle, which was a logo bag, your disposable cutlery. And let me tell you, it was a very functional piece of packaging. Don't you agree with Nick?
Absolutely. I think it was a Mediterranean salad, but I think the question that we should be asking the customers is that, are you willing to listen to ideas on solutions to make it through this time, to try things and be open? But there are going to be some people out there, and this is okay, that are going to say, no, I'm not going to go backwards in the quality or the presentation of the material that we're using. I'm fine with passing costs over. Okay, fine. Your customers will realize it. But then I think we have to be fair that some properties out there, they're serving a level of their customer that just don't care about those prices, and it's not going to affect them at home. But I believe that the people that we get to talk to that are smaller multi-units that are looking for ideas to do this, and Todd, you brought up a great point about wrapping a burger in the laminated sheets and everything that we offer at Durable that are still in great supply, and doing things like that where it's like, hey, this still shows really well. The executive chef over that concept doesn't have to worry about reducing or diluting the quality of the food going home. And as we all know, maybe we can talk about this for a minute, because I think this is always a good reminder, on the Silver Series and the Black Diamond products that Durable makes, what that to-go experience looks like. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, on what that to-go experience looks like when people get it home and all the other levels that they can do with it once they leave.
Well, the beauty of the smooth, it's too bad we don't have Rich Hody on here, the Mr. Home Meal Replacement
Mr. Home Meal Replacement.
The guy taught me how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was working for the company. Honestly. I'll say this about the smooth wall technology that you just brought up, Nick. To me, it presents the best of any material that you're going to find. So for those who aren't familiar, it is a smoothed out, coated piece of aluminum, black on the outside and gold on the inside, or just plain silver, but it does not look like an aluminum container. You look at it and it just looks like a high-end plastic almost. But it is a dual ovenable container, just the container. I'm not talking about the dome lid that it comes with. You can put it in the microwave or the oven. Microwave, obviously, you have to make sure it's not touching the sidewalls and there's food in the container. You can literally take it. We sell... there's a grocery store chain down in Texas that's called H-E-B. There's over 200 stores. Yes. And they have been buying our smooth wall containers since I've been at Durable, which is almost 11 years. I brought it over with me. And it's basically, you can put a piece of chicken, a piece of steak, whatever, take it home, pop off the top, put it right in the oven, cook it up, and present it in this really good looking piece. And it comes in 5 different sizes, and you can do a multitude of things. You see it at Whole Foods, high-end grocery stores, high-end restaurants, steakhouses. During COVID, when everyone had to come up with a to-go program or a delivery program, we were going gangbusters with these, because places like Gibson's, Morton's, Fleming's, these national steakhouse chains who've never done these programs, you can't put a steak in a foil, like a regular foil container, make it look good. You can't put it in a clamshell foam hinge container.
No.
Who wants to eat a steak in a foam hinge container? But when you see it come in this beautiful smooth wall container, you're like, man, that is good presentation.
Yeah.
We were putting fish in the silver, either chicken or steak in the black and gold. It looked great. And it's a decent price point. It's not cheap. It's not super expensive, somewhere in the middle, but it's a really great piece.
But there's reusability there too that
Yes.
you can't put a price tag on, because people that carry that home, whether it's their leftover or use it or the establishment's using as takeout, it has got reusability to it. And that's one of the 3 R's of green, is reusable, recyclable, and repurposing. So it's got a pretty good shelf life to it too. So that container, I know here when we get some damaged product, I know my wife liked those containers because they're great and they're dishwasher safe and
Yep.
definitely microwavable. So a couple points I want to make sure, because even our current operators today get confused. Todd, this microwavable thing, we talk about, but you'd be surprised that these commercial operators with the commercial microwaves, they're scared to death to put these containers in their microwave. So let's repeat that. If the microwave is newer than 1985,
that's right. Look at you.
And Amy Stern Howard taught me that years ago, and it doesn't touch the sides. You can't put a foil sheet on it, right? Just got to keep that off. And it doesn't touch the sides. It's completely dual ovenable and microwavable, correct?
Yes, as long as there's food in the container, yes.
As long as there's food in the container. The other thing that I want to mention as we try to wrap this episode here, great information today, is Durable also sells, they have a paper side, which is waxed paper, foil laminated sheets, the logo. They've got some great stuff here also in their portfolio. Very, very diversified as well. So as we talked earlier, and Nick brought it up, you're looking for some other solutions, guys. Hey, we've got it for you. You don't always have to. Years ago, when the burger joints came around, 100 years ago, when Jack Hody and Rich Hody were walking the streets, you used to go to a burger joint, and it was never in a box. It was in a wrap and foil wrapper, perhaps. So even the back days in the Portillo days, right, when it was when they were first starting, you get that dog. It wasn't in a container. It was in a wax sheet, right, just rolled up. Well, so keep that in the back of your mind.
And you know what else, John?
Go ahead,
by the way, they're using our sheets now. They're logoed sheets. They are using, and they are wrapping their hot dogs and their burgers in our sheets. Now, obviously, those are still going into a bag, but when you go and eat at the restaurant, you see one of those. That's a durable packaging one right there.
I'm glad that you said that, Todd, because the customization is still on the table for wax paper and some of the other fry bags, the baguettes, burgers, bags, cookie bags, all that stuff Durable offers. It's funny you brought up about disposing of the bags, because just a quick plug to the movie The Founder the other day was how McDonald's started out with everything was designed for speed and efficiency to literally go into a bag in a Kraft lunch bag and was wrapped in a burger wrapper and a fry bag. And then all that was designed to go into a trash receptacle. But there's no silverware. There was no fancy packaging. When you go back to our roots in the industry, I think that that's an important thing to remember. And sometimes you do have to simplify. And these days, I think we as consumers, when we get home, I like simple more sometimes, because trying to be more focused on the family and just like, oh yeah, it's here. I'm going to just eat it right out of the wrapper. No problem.
And sometimes I think we put too much emphasis on the because we're in the business, everybody thinks that packaging is so important. It is, as long as it keeps the integrity of the food warm and right with the food.
Right.
We put a lot of emphasis on it. At the end of the day, you're ripping that packaging open, and why? Because you're hungry, man. You're eating with your eyes. You're ready to eat.
Yes.
So let's get creative on this.
Can I say one more thing before?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Todd.
So our newest at Durable, Nick brought up that we do have our bag line. We've had these pinch bottom bags for a couple years now. So the bread bags, cookies bags, and sandwich bags. Our newest venture, which we are now out there with, is our square bottom bags. So rope handle bags, the SOS bags, craft and white. We're doing all of that stuff. We are just adding to our diversity in our line. It's very important because aluminum is so volatile. So we want to have other options out there. So, and to Nick's point, we do so much custom printing. We can do four colors on a wax sheet. We can do four colors on a square bottom bag or a pinch bottom bag. So, check us out at durablepackaging.com and see what we have to offer. And the Hody Group has been an unbelievable partner to us. Since I came over, you guys came over in 11 years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We
12 years. 12 years,
12
man.
Years. Yeah.
12 years. Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, listen, guys, we're going to have to leave it right here. That's all the time that we have for us today. If you'd like to reach any of us here at the Hody Group or Durable Packaging, please check out our show notes attached and for our contact information at this podcast. Also, please like, follow, and share the Let's Set Your Table podcast. And if you're so moved, we would be grateful that you would leave us a positive review on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or YouTube Music. And we also would encourage you to leave us a comment or perhaps a topic that you'd like us to discuss at future episodes. So we'll see you again next time right here at the table.
Please join us again for another episode of Let's Set Your Table. If you would like more information, samples, or would like to consult with the Hody Group, visit thehodygroup.com. That's HODE group.com.